So, welcome to the Vocal Revolution podcast, where we talk about the power of voice to change our worlds personally and collectively. And because it's Valentine's Day, my special guest today is Cindy Jarrett. She's a conscious relationship consultant and the founder of Designing Access Consulting. For the past 36 years, Cindy has taught conscious relationship practices that foster emotional responsibility and bring emotional freedom to her clients. She is the author of The Path of the Golden Heart, Conscious Dating in an Unconscious World. She brings a fresh approach to the dating process that bypasses all the worry, games, and guessing about calling forth the appropriate partner for you. The book prepares each person to choose wisely a partner for love and receive being loved. And Cindy's big why is ending relationship pain because she feels every heart ought to experience the heaven of great earth while here on earth. And I was really lucky to meet Cindy thanks to my dear friend Esther Austin, who invited us both to be a guest on her Esther on the Sofa show. So a big shout out and thanks to Esther for the introduction. And huge thanks to you, Cindy, for coming to talk to us today about the role of our voice in creating healthy and conscious relationships. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Just lovely to have you here. Thank you. And to come share your wise pearls, your pearls of wisdom with us. And tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you become a conscious relationship consultant? And how did you come to write this book? What was it about for you?
Well, it really started with my process of I was ready. I had ended a long-term relationship and I was really ready for my soulmate. And I was out on a run after work, and I got this spiritual fax that I call it download that said, because I was 30 at the time, and it said, "He's here. You can connect with them." So it wasn't like someone who hasn't been born yet, and I had to wait 18 years for them to be legal. So I realized, oh yeah, he's here. So I turned around, I ran home, and I proceeded to do a meditation of connecting to the soul of my soulmate. And I did it every day after work. I also used the divination system of the tarot. And so with those two systems working together, I got very clear information about who this person was. And I did this over several months in the summer of 85. And so I thought, well, I'm either on to something because I kept getting the same information. So I journaled it, logged on, and then I just said, okay, how and where? And I got very guided on where to meet this person, and sure enough, that happened. I went to a workshop and he was there. And so I had this system of being able to meet one's beloved. And, we went on to, create our relationship, and 40 years ago. So we are in our 40th official year of meeting and then living together and then marrying. So I, years back, I decided I want to teach this. I want to bring this to people. And at the time, I was a health professional and decided to be a uh, communication and relationship consultant. I hired someone to help me figure out what was next. And that's what also came as a spiritual download for me, which was people need guidance on how to operate in relationship. And so I
Mm.
put my consulting business together in 89. And my first client was the woman I had hired to help me put my business together because she and her husband were having trouble. And then, so the first two projects I did was conscious dating and couples communication training. And that's really how it started. And then I've just been, I've been going and going for over 36 years now, teaching all kinds of single people, how to really consciously date.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. It's really inspiring to hear your journey and how unique that is and how generously you are sharing that in the world. And so, if you could put it in a nutshell, what exactly is conscious dating? What does that mean?
A good question. Um, so um, there's many definitions that people could use, but I use the definition of it's really, really knowing what you want and need, and then standing for those wants and needs to be met. And what that means in its, essence is you have the clarity of what, who you are and what you want and need for love and happiness long term. So you're not out dating, figuring it out on people's hearts. And a lot of people do that with dating. Oh, I don't really know what I want. Oh, I want to play the field. And, it is a way to get to know, but it's also can be fraught with pain to do it that way. So the more you can ground yourself in what you really know about yourself and just declare and get very clear. And yes, you write it down and put it in writing and organize it. And I'll talk about that a little later. But so that's the beginning process, so that when you go out in the world, you're already resonating energetically with a clarity, so that when you meet somebody and you vet them, you get to know them. And that's a big part of conscious dating, is the vetting process before you give your heart, mind, and body over to a perfect stranger, usually. Sometimes it's somebody you've known for a while. And then the second part of that definition is committing to being honest, responsible, and non-harming. And why I add that, because that's the practice that is the foundation and support for you going out with your clarity and knowing what you want and need, and attracting that to you. And so that it takes away the guessing game very much. Also, when you're responsible to yourself in the standing for and the clarity and bringing that to people. I mean, a lot of people really appreciate this approach, who have done this and gone out and dated and go, God, it's so nice. You know what you want and need. You're being really straight with me. There's no gaming going on. So that's the responsible part. You're taking care of yourself, and you're also taking care of your potential partner. Because every person you meet is a potential partner, possibly. And then also non-harming. And because a lot of times people don't take rejection well, or a no, this isn't a fit, and then they'll come back with some kind of punishment. And that, if you can't handle it within first few dates, or first date, or few months in of getting to know somebody, where they have to say, it's just not a fit. And in the book, there's different ways to say goodbye. There's different gradations of intensity where you may have to get very, very serious, have to block people because they don't listen, they don't hear you, they don't, take you seriously. And that's a disrespect. If someone says no, respect the no. No is a full sentence, as they say. And so, no, period. And so there's that. Responsible, non-harming, and honest. So here's the honesty part. And this is the part that is a huge piece that's missing in garden variety dating, is people don't tell the truth about their age. They don't tell the truth about their STD history. They don't tell the truth about why their past relationships ended and reveal their dark shadow issues. They don't tell the truth about where they are in what they really want and need. Do you want a friends with benefit? Are you just fresh out of a marriage or committed relationship and you really need some time, but you would like to date this person you've met? So they know going in, okay, you're not all, you're kind of a mess, like they say in Ted Lasso. You're a bit of a mess. But I like you, I'll get to know you. And then there's, the people that are really, really ready, and they really are matching what it is you want and need. So that clarity gets put into the practices of being responsible, honest, and non-harming. And that's where it's conscious, instead of it's driven more by survival, or, unfinished business from the past pains of, a divorce or a separation or past relationship history, and that's a big part of what this definition holds. And I always start out with asking people, and listeners can think about, of this definition, where is my weakness? Is it that I don't really know what I want and need and I'm still figuring it out? Is it that I know what I want and need, but I've never stood for having that particular person. I've been going against my own heart's desire. And
Mm,
then the responsible, non-harming, and honest ways. Well, yeah, I haven't been so honest, or I haven't been so self-disclosing, or I've been a little irresponsible, putting myself in harm's way with someone I know isn't right for me.
mm.
That's an irresponsibility to yourself. So that's it's a little bit of a long answer, but it's where I open the work with people.
Yeah,
And it starts, it shows me the direction of where to take people in the training, and that's all in the book. I should show
fantastic.
a
Yeah,
picture of the
please
book.
do show us the book. That's fantastic. We'd love to see it.
Where's
Really.
my, here we go.
Yeah. Oh, look
So
at that. It's a beauty. It's a
yeah,
beauty. Fantastic.
I posted out.
Lovely. So if you're just
Yeah,
listening, Cindy's holding up the book and it's just got a lovely color cover with this weaving motif on it, which just definitely looks like the path of the golden heart. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful cover and it's got so much wisdom inside it. And I just want to pick up on, I know there are many, many aspects to conscious dating. So we're just kind of touching on some
yeah.
of it, but and then people can come to you and find out more. But the conscious communication piece, obviously we're talking about voice today, and I really heard you when you said about honesty, the being honest about our own needs and wants, being honest about our backstory where necessary, being honest
Yeah.
about our situation in life, that being, how would you define being emotionally intelligent or responsible with our communication? What does that look like for you?
So one of the first things one needs to understand is all relationships live inside of communication. So, yes, bringing voice to what it is that who you are and what you want and need. So, that's something to really, really, remember is I'm going to need to learn how to communicate, how to take care of myself through communication. So, I encourage people that if they haven't ever trained officially or read officially on conflict resolution, to do so because there will be breakdowns in communication when it has to do with love. So, love is everything we want and need, everything we desire, why we came here to the Earth School to learn about love, to experience its vastness. It's what drives us in relationship and certainly the dating process. And at the same time, love is not enough. We need commitment. We need ability to communicate. We need to understand how our heart is wired and different from the mind. And you talk about emotional intelligence. I know that's a strong term that's out in the culture. And personally, I like the terminology of emotional responsibility,
Mm,
being response able, because intelligence then still kind of keeps it up into a mind intelligence, intellectual understanding. And we need the mind. We need to understand through our beautiful minds what is going on in the heart. And that's a big part of conscious dating for me in the training I do in the book is really understanding the language of the heart
mm,
because that, our heart, is what drives us in our love relationships. And a lot of people are disconnected with their emotional self. If we were to do a pie graph of, splitting, the four parts of the human blueprint of mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, if we, try to cut it into pie pieces, the emotional slice of the pie is usually the smallest developed area for
mm,
people. It's not in our mainstream school systems. It's, if you seek it out post, graduation from either high school or college, then okay, you're doing better. And if you get a really good therapist that helps you heal your past pains and family issues and such. which I highly, highly recommend that you do your dark shadow healing work so that you come as clean-hearted as possible. But one of the things I'd like to talk about is that we sort of have this diamond in our body being. And so we have our mind, we have our vision, our third eye, and then we have our visual perception and listening. Listening is so important in communication and what you're hearing in the voice, the tone, the word choices, the energy behind it. And then there's the communicating, and then there's the feeling down in the heart. So we kind of have this little communication center in our bodies. And so it's really, really good to be able to understand how to bring forth yourself through communication. So that's that part of that clarity brought into standing for. So if you're out dating first date, I encourage people within the first 3 dates that you understand what are your intentions? What do you want and need? What are you looking for?
Mm.
Tell me your list, where you really have deep, direct questions. And if someone says, well, I don't, that's too much for a Friday night, then, well, they're probably not real clear on what they want. And they probably just want a friends with benefit and they're not looking for a partner. So if you really are ready for a partner, tell the truth. If you really aren't ready, tell the truth. So it's everything lives in the voice. And so we learn a lot about hesitation, the refusal to answer a question, or the how the voice deflects and doesn't answer the question. So we're always listening for how someone brings forth through communication. So the voice is really key to pay attention to.
Yeah, communication is everything. It's absolutely everything. It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And most people are under communicating.
Yeah.
And when I work with couples and individuals, I tell them you need to learn how to over communicate. And then that's not being chatty Cathy and filling all the silences with, blah, 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 just vocalizations. It's about making sure people understand. And that takes time. That takes time sometimes for people. And if someone isn't clear about who and what they want and need for love and the involvements possibly with you and your heart is in their hands, well, you're moving forward with someone who doesn't have clarity. And that quite frankly it's an unknown that can be very, very tricky. And again, you can say, well, you're really cute and, a lot of things are really lining up, that I've heard about who you are. And I also really get that you're not really ready. You've said it, or I feel it because of your story. And you make a pact with yourself. You put a pin in the calendar and just say, if I don't have clarity about who this person is for me and I am for them, because it goes both ways. You want to make sure you're right for them as much as they are right for you. It's not just, are you right for me? Are you right for me? Are you right for me? It's like, are you my mother? Are you my mother? Kind of thing, that children's book. So yeah, you you make sure, you take care of yourself. You don't go long term with someone who's really fuzzy. They're not necessarily going to know how to take care of your heart.
Sure.
So,
That
yeah,
clarity. That clarity is everything, really, isn't it? And obviously, yes, and it's not like you do it once and then it's done, is it? It's because it's an ongoing journey because everything changes and people's where people are going, what people are experiencing is always changing. So
yeah,
if you're looking to prepare yourself, say, for example, if you wanted to go through this process, now because you described quite an amazing process for you, but if we were to break that down, and obviously that was unique to you and very wonderful and sounds really, it's probably for some people sounds quite extraordinary, but if we broke that down, that process of calling in somebody with that same clarity and honesty and communication, what are the stages that people could go through to understand that process?
Well, the first thing I start with is self-love because wherever you go, there you are. So wherever you are on the 0 to 10 scale or 0 to 100 of self-love, and I like to ask people, to just close your eyes and just listen to this question of where are you? What number comes up in terms of your connectivity to loving yourself? Boom. What percent comes up? And so that's revealing. So when I when people come to me for work, they are usually in some form of pain. They have tried regular dating, it's not working. They don't want to do the apps. They don't want to do the bar scene. They are mature and they really want to land a bogey. They want their partner. They don't want to mess around. They don't really want to be dating around much, and they want to get set up for that. So the first is self-love. And sometimes the project I do with people are usually 9 months long, sometimes a year, year and a half, depending on their history, unfinished business, what they need to heal. Think about it. You're bringing yourself, all of who you are, to someone else, and they are doing that with you. And you can definitely agree to do your healing work together, and but to acknowledge, that that may be needed. And so that's another step that can happen when you meet somebody and you find out, yeah, I got a bit of unfinished business, and you know that because if you have traumas unhealed or triggers that are not fully understood or in your command, or you don't really believe that you are lovable or worthy of love, or you have a history that says, I've never created this before now, because you're going to be creating newly moving into this training. And the book again walks you through the entire program that I give people over the 9 months to a year, year and a half. And so it starts with the work of self-love. And this isn't just about, mani petties and, going and, getting a new haircut or something. I mean, yes, you can do that, but self-love is really about how you are on the inside. So that's the first bit of exploration and looking and seeing. And I have a whole list of, what is self-love. And if you feel you're weak or developing in any of those areas, you need to attend to those areas. And then the next piece is definitely belief work. Because if you believe the object of your love, so, whatever gender, desires you have, the object of your love, if you've got negativity about that group of people, then you're going to draw to you in a crowded room like a magnet, someone who has that, belief that's going to mirror, it's going to act out, won't be faithful, won't really love you, whatever you've got going about yourself, about love, about the object of your love, also just about, marriage and commitment. I have a whole category, list of categories of beliefs to review and to clean up and learn how to rewrite the belief structures. So those are two early steps in the conscious dating process where you're at home alone, taking care of yourself and really nurturing your, looking around your world and your life and cleaning up any areas that where you don't love yourself. So sometimes it could be in the physical universe, sometimes it's the emotional universe, sometimes it's the health body, sometimes it's where you are in your career, you hate your job, you hate your work. You want to love your work. It's a big part of what we do in life. So to, really look and see about, areas of, what you spend the most of your time with, having it be with something that you really do enjoy and love and feel connected to. So those are some beginning steps, and then there's moving into the conscious dating and learning about what is that process. And it is definitely a process of vetting somebody. before you just absolutely give over anything to that person. And you can be open and honest, without running into sex right away. In this idea on sitcoms that the third date, who said that? You
Mhm.
know, I encourage people, if you really are connecting and you really want to move forward in a concentrated, getting to know each other to see if we're right for each other, that you do all that before you have sex, that you also do regular STD testing so that you have a form and say, hey, I just tested and, I'm clean, I'm clear. And for men to do that. And a lot of urologists, discourage men to get STD panels. Well, you would know. And like, oh, so you have to wait till you get something and then you know? It's like, no, it's prevention. The best STD, the best safe sex is testing and then protection. And a lot of
Mhm.
people don't practice that. I can still say honestly that it is the weakest link in my clients, of in terms of listening to me and believing me.
Mhm.
And the thing about STDs, and then this is very adult, this is where you have to be in your adult. You can't be operating your sexual relationship from your adolescent. So this is grown up stuff here. If you
Yeah.
really, really want love and you really want the kind of love that sustains, you've got to be able to do the proper stages of vetting.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And it is, and what you came back to about what you talked about being emotionally responsible, it's about being really responsible, responding to your own self first. That process of what is my inner dialogue with myself? What is my love for myself and my own life? And how would I bring that to somebody else? And then going through those really clear stages. And that's what the book does. It maps out really clearly what kind of questions to ask, what kind of um, settings to choose so that you feel safe.
Yeah.
And you're responsible firstly for yourself, and then, yeah, being responsible to another person because, yeah, and STD testing being one of those things because it's really about what am I bringing to this person and what
Yes.
might they be bringing to me as well in all areas. So, yeah,
Yes. And one of the tricky parts about STDs right now in the current culture, medical culture, is you know, HPV, and it's very rampant. The statistics says it's in 50% of the dating population. Same with herpes. And there's a test for women for HPV, but not men. And the only way you can test, and this is very sobering, and I put this in this communication because people need to really understand the importance of taking care of another person. You can sometimes find a clinic that will test semen for the different strains of HPV, but you have to find out where they are, and then obviously you have to, send in a sample and such. If you really want to be responsible, if you really don't want to harm people, and that's part of the problem is the medical model doesn't test sufficiently enough for the male side of the equation. So
yeah,
that's where, protection and condoms and, come into play. And and I got it, a lot of people don't want to do that, but that's also a sign of how mature, emotionally mature. And that's something we probably should talk about is emotional responsibility.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
And going forward, obviously there are lots of questions to ask. There are lots of there's a lot of that needs to be communicated about in those early stages. And there's a lot of talk on the internet about red flags and all of these. You see a lot of things going around about that. It's a very popular topic now. So what would you say people need to look out for if they're, yeah, in your view?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a red flags list since moment one. So you have to understand this training is 36 years old, that I have brought to people. And I had a list of red flags. And yes, I've added two over time. and it was one page, now it's three. And so there are a lot of things that can be a red flag to you that isn't an issue for somebody else. There are some very clear red flags that are deal breakers. You're not a smoker and you're with a smoker. So, red flag. Your spiritual expression and involvement, and you want a partner that matches that, and the other person has none, or they're atheist, or they don't connect at that level and or differently, and that can be a deal breaker for people wanting children, not having children. So these are some of the things that, in the wants and needs desires, and you look at the red flags where, and I have at the top of that list, it's knowing when to walk away and knowing when to, really work things through. So with my husband, he was in an environment, a community where the head of that culture and company smoked cigars. So everybody, women too, were smoking cigars, to, be like Mike in a way. It was like be like the be like the head person. And that just, Thomas was smoking a cigar on the second date when we got together, and I just said, "You're not going to get to first base with me with, you know, smoking cigars." My father was dying of emphysema. I was a dental hygienist and knew what, oral cancers looked like. And I also had, the icky uncle who was a cigar smoker. So, yeah, and some people say, well, what if he had said no? And I would have turned around and gotten my car and walked away, gone away. And so you have to know when to walk away, when this is unacceptable behavior. So you have a list to look at. Now, at the same time, some of that, when those behaviors start to show, then you can have conversations because sometimes people haven't even been told that the behaviors they're putting out is off-putting or offensive or doesn't work. And I like working with the terminology of does it work, does it not work, versus bad, wrong, good, black or white, kind of distinctions. Look at it as does this work? Because some people come from a culture where everybody kind of screams and yells, and that's how they show love. So they can handle screaming and yelling. And another person might go, God, we didn't even talk. You know, our communications were none. And that's going to be a diversity there that you're going to have to figure out,
Mm,
how to meet in the middle around that if
yeah.
everything else lines up.
Yeah.
So the willingness to work things through, to work things out is really crucial. This is a huge part of emotional responsibilities, understanding emotional processing. You will be emotional processing together if you are a couple. So you need to learn how to do it effectively. And there's two chapters devoted to just that topic of emotional responsibility.
Mhm.
And and that's where the self-love comes in, that's where the what's in your emotional toolkit, how well do you know the different voices that live inside yourself, how well do you know yourself in terms of how you write yourself and get yourself back in balance, and because you're going to be doing that together as a couple. And I like to do my little hand puppets with people and just say, I got stuff to work on. Me too. And here's some of the things I need to work on because I know what my red flags are. I know what I bring to the party that does not work because I've been told. I also have the awareness. I see the results I produce. And then the other person says, me too. You want to work on it together? Yeah, let's work on it together. So this is where you might seek out someone like a consultant who teaches people how to have great relationships. I love working with couples. A lot of times I am the last bus stop before divorce. I
Yeah.
am the last bus stop before someone parts and just writes someone off. And people more and more nowadays they're more willing to just walk away without having a conversation I could have seen the cigar on Thomas and not even said anything, turned around, walked away, and not explain myself or not make a demand. Sometimes we have to make a demand for change. Something just doesn't work,
Yeah.
or you have been, hanging in there with the promise that they have offered that they're going to course correct something or whatever's in the way, and they're not taking action.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, yeah, addictions, there's a whole list of all the different kinds of addictions people can have. That's a deterrent to being available for taking care of oneself and others, and understand addiction and also judgment. Those two engagements have functionality. Their function is to prevent you from feeling your emotions. They're there to numb, to distract, to distance. That's what they're there for. And when you look at if you're engaged in any addictions, if you're engaged in, any of the other ways of, acting out, to really look at, see, what am I avoiding?
Yeah.
Just ask that simple question. What am I avoiding by engaging in too much pot, too much alcohol, and this and that's, that people are doing, and Haagen-Dazs, shopping, eBay, it has many forms, and also judgment. People that reach for judgment are judgy judgers, in their wiring, and to look and see, what am I avoiding? What is so uncomfortable? And to turn and face. And I also teach the four F's of uh, dealing with emotions. And so we can fight, we can flee, we can freeze, deer in the headlights, and or turn and face. And a lot of people don't talk about the fourth F of turning and facing. And that's a big part of conscious dating is don't run away, don't numb it away, don't belief, negative belief it away, really turn and face what are the issues here. And that's one of the criterias that you vet for is people that want to communicate. If they're a consummate introvert, you want to find out how they handle conflict. And that all comes in the questionnaires too. So, the red flags, what's their emotional bandwidth? What's their training and experience in conflict resolution and dealing with breakdowns? Because that's what conflict is. It's just a breakdown. And when you
Yeah.
make it kind of simple like that, well, then how do I deal with breakdowns? Do I avoid? Do I fight? Do I flee? Do I freeze? Do I turn and face? And I'd like to. I'd like to learn how to. I don't know how to do that yet. I haven't had a willing partner to do that work with me. There's lots of things that come up that, where people, uh, just haven't had the opportunity of a solid person over in in their partner.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you're doing fantastic work, helping people face, really face what's happening for them, both for themselves internally and then in relationship. And, you were saying how you are the last bus stop sometimes before a really major breakdown, a really major parting of the ways. So, do you have any lovely stories you'd just like to share with us of times where you have helped people face some tough stuff or turn something around or, communicate differently?
Well, all of what I've said here, I do in a non-fee consultation. Before anybody works with me, I offer a non-fee consultation, which is usually 2, sometimes even 3 hours, depending on if I'm working with couples or individuals. So they hear all this. They understand what they're signing the contract for, because I have people sign a contract to be able to commit to getting trained. And I hold this very dear that it's my job to train you in all the pieces I know you need that you don't know yet. So it is a leap of faith. So that's why I offer those free non-fee consultations so that people really understand what they're saying yes to. And so in terms of stories, oh God, of just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. There, like I said, before, people come to me usually in pain. And so when you talk about voice, um, that's why I don't call myself a coach because some coaches are very aggressive in their deliveries. And I really understand that I've just been given someone's heart that's hurting, and they're asking to be healed and trained in this environment because that's what happens. And so I learn about what that person wants and needs, and then that can guide me on where I begin the training. And some pieces in the program that I offer, there's many things I teach in that structure. And so you know, I'll start with certain things that I do with everybody, no matter what. And then there's where it becomes individual, depending on what they learn, what their infrastructure or foundation is. And so I get to really go deep with people. I'm in the trenches of where their deepest pains and hurts and sorrows are. So, um, I also am goofy and, folksy, and I like to tease and, be playful. And so that, while we're learning and people are crying and also, laughing and seeing, that there is hope. People connect with that there is hope pretty quickly in the training and in the book. Like I said, the whole training is there. So there's one story that pops out is a woman who she was in her 60s, and she got referred, and she had lost her first husband to a plane accident and hadn't really dated. She raised her son by herself. And so we got to talking and, revealing and, going through the process. And I said, I think we're going to need to address the loss of your husband in the airplane accident. And she burst into tears and kind of said, well, well, what makes you think that? I mean, she got the humor of it because of what welled up in her. And I said, well, shall I say it any clearer than you have already? So that was a cute moment and a revealing moment, and it shifted our focus off of conscious dating and vetting a new person and what all that involved to I got to take care of your heart. I've got to help you recover yourself and
Mm,
get ready. And this is another thing about this training. You are, if you come to this training, in this reading the book, it's because you want a beloved, most likely. And this prepares you to be a beloved, as well as to look for, and as you're vetting someone, making sure they've got the right stuff in being a beloved. It's a different role than just someone to date or friends with benefits, and I'm not opposed to that if that's what you want. There's no morality issue here. It's just tell the truth about what you want. Um, I've had so many people that are currently dating the wrong people, and they come to me because they want to figure out, should I proceed with this person or not? And then it's the clarity comes, and they either go to the person and actually get, clearer in their communication with them about, I've been kind of hanging around and, trying to figure out who we are, and I really know now. I want to move forward into a more serious exploration onto who we are. Do you want to do that with me? And if it's a no, or if it's, I just can't, or I'm too afraid, or, sometimes they refer their dating partners to me. So I'm working with, two people at the same time. And so those are that's a common thing. Someone's already dating someone. The other thing is they have ended a marriage or they've ended a major relationship or even just, they've had some space and a friend has referred them because they know about this work. And they're scared. They're scared to date. They're scared to, just put themselves out there. They're just, possibly tired, or they don't have the belief structure that it's possible that they can find someone. And I'm like, no, we have close to 9 billion people on the planet, and you just really need one, and you probably have a good 20 that's on the planet in your age bracket, in your wanting, desiring bracket, currently, alive here. And we do and can have multiple soulmates. Some people, sort of have an idea that there's just one. And it's like, no, what if your partner, dies of, an illness? So you're just, well, that's it. You only get one love. I said, no, all our soldiers all across the planet, some soldiers die. So that spouse that's at home with the kids or whatever can't have love again. So just let that go if you think it's only one soulmate and that's the one you had and lost through, death or divorce, whatever. Um, you just let that go. When you get ready for love, and that's a big part of conscious dating, getting ready to be loved and ready to love, then, you know, those people show up. And sometimes they're your neighbor. They've been living next door to you. Sometimes it's the person at work. Sometimes it's the next person you sit to or sit next to on an airplane. So, uh, what I can say is I've been to a lot of weddings, and that's really rewarding to bring single people that don't believe it's possible for them, take them through the training, and then, you know, uh, be able to have it culminate in the wedding of, they really are with their soulmate. And a lot of times they'll do the premarital training that I do with couples. So it's sort of bled into that. And then sometimes, people will date for a while and then they'll go off and they'll date that person. They'll either move in, maybe they'll get married and, all that. And then, some issues come and then they'll come as a couple until I get to meet people's spouses and stuff. So my hope for the book was that people could take themselves through the training on their own and then uh, you know, be able to reach out to me because they just need a little help here or a little help there. They don't need the full 9 months. They're self-directing. They just want to trim tab a couple areas, or they get in their dating process with their person and they're going along and they get in, they get stuck a little bit, or there's a glitch or there's a breakdown or whatever, and they just need a little support. And then, then they're on their way. So that was the intention of the book, is that, people would be self-directive, take themselves through the process, and then also hopefully reach out and if they needed some support. Because obviously, when people work with me individually, they get individual in-depth training for who they are. And that does matter. That does change things. Um, so yeah, again, another long answer. You have to bring
Yeah,
out
it's
the hook.
great. Well, the wealth of your experience shines through, and the fact that there's so much depth and breadth to, of course, how many people you've worked in with so many different types of scenarios, and but these principles can guide us wherever we are in our journey. And obviously, yeah, we could talk for ages longer, but I'm aware we need to be aware of time. But obviously, the first thing would be for everyone to get the book because it is amazing and it's a fantastic resource and fantastic training that you've very generously shared. And another thing would be, of course, to get in touch with you if they need further support or are interested in your services. But if there was just a final message you'd like to share that people could take away and reflect on from this, what would you say?
I think what you want to take away is really evaluate where you are in loving yourself because we rely on self-love in the times that our partners can't be there to do it or to give to us for whatever reason. You know, they're sick with the flu, they're traveling with business, they're working on, some inner child healing work, and they're really in it and they aren't as available in that window of time. So, really deepen your self love and self loving practices so that you are solid. Absolutely get training in conflict resolution. Read, 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 study, 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 and also do a bit of study with your partner when you find them. Do some work together. Um, and just really adhere to the definition that's been given, in the conscious dating process. Really engage in all those particles of the clarity, the standing for, responsible, honest, non-harming ways of relating. And if you know that you've acted out in the past, just clean that up with yourself. And absolutely, absolutely clean up your negative beliefs because we create our reality. Whatever your reality is right now is based on your belief structure. So, whatever you have, whatever you've created, whatever you're dealing with, the miracles to the strife, whatever's been there is driven from your belief structure. So, clean up your belief structure. And when ready, call in your beloved. And there
Absolutely.
is the meditation process in the back of the book for those that resonate with the meditation process, the philosophy and ideology that we absolutely can connect soul to soul at the soul level. Absolutely, everything that I got in the meditation that I wrote down in my journal book was absolutely my husband to a T. And to the point that he was younger than me yet born the same year as me, year of the horse. And just I mean had a child, a daughter, breaking up from a major relationship. I mean, all these things got revealed to me, and it's a powerful process to include spirit to help you connect at a energy level, and so that when you meet there's this feeling of, oh my God, I know you. I just know you somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
magical.
Yeah.
That's
So those are the steps I would say absolutely engage in. And
fantastic.
you'll do well.
Thank you for your hope and for giving people hope and for helping people, you know, mend their hearts and enjoy wonderful, healthy relationships, conscious relationships. And if people want to
Yeah.
come and find you online, what's your website or where can they find you?
Well, I'll just I think my email would be fine, which is emotionalcreativity@aol.com.
Okay,
Emotional creativity, all one word, at AOL.com. And then that way I'll really know at that email address that they've come from your podcast. And I
fantastic.
only am taking on a couple of projects a year right now because I'm really focusing on my writing, because I'm working on several books that are have my attention right now. So it really is going to be a first come, first serve process, but I will offer the non-fee consultation, and if it's right, we'll look and see, how to begin. If it's not the right timing or whatever, I always help people find, the direction to go to next or the work to do next. And you have the book to get and take yourself through the book, read through it once, And there's a how to use the book, and then go through it again, do the exercises, and then go through again and reread all the areas you highlighted and really take it in as a training. The cool news about love is it's a trainable skill. So if you feel like you're defective or deficient in your ability to love, you can be trained.
That's a really great message to end with, that it's there is, there's always learning. It's always possible to do, what I call it, cleaning out the bucket. It's always possible to clean out the bucket and start fresh, and
Yes, yes.
we've just had the new year, like in the kind of Western calendar, but we're also now going into not only Valentine's Day, but the new year of the horse, the lunar calendar. So, it's a great time to embrace learning something new and cleaning out the bucket and yeah, loving self and learning how to love others, and to understand it is always learning. There's no like fixed destination. We're always learning, aren't we? We're always growing. We're always, and that can be a wonderful process, just
Yeah,
within ourselves and then with another person. And it can become
yeah,
an adventure of growth and learning together.
yeah, absolutely all that. 40 years in with one person, you really learn what the journey is about in various junctures and years in like that. And I mean, Thomas and we're in a huge growth spurt right now. Huge. But with this yummy foundation that we've built, and this is something that the people that turn over relationships too soon before, or let them go too soon because they're untrained, is just one of my saddest, experiences to witness. Um, because, there's such a unknown beauty sometimes of people that really have conscious relationships long term, and just the depth of love, the depth of being seen, known, and heard with deep accuracy, which we all yearn for. Um, it's a noble pursuit. It truly is.
That's beautiful. It's beautiful to hear that because, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of other messages out there that are not quite so hopeful. So it's wonderful to end with that beautiful message of hope that it is a noble pursuit and it is possible. It's absolutely possible to have healthy, beautiful, conscious, yummy, delicious relationships and for that to be a
Yeah.
lifelong journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Katie, for this. This has just been really fun and delightful.
Oh, as are you, fun and delightful and wonderful. And thank you for sharing your wisdom so generously with us today. We're really great, really, really grateful. And I'm sure everyone who's listening feels the same. And, just I just encourage anyone who is listening to, be brave. It's a constant learning for me. As a voice practitioner, it never ends. Where's the next level of bravery? Where's the next level of courage? And in our personal relationships, it takes a lot of courage sometimes to have that level of honesty. But I think we're here to say, it's possible and to go for it and to do that because we are enriched when we share ourselves, the truth of who we are, and we have more emotionally responsible, caring, beautiful relationships as a result. So, yeah, thank you so much to you, Cindy, for sounding that beautiful note of hope for us today.
Change the world with your voice.